Okay, so I'd like to welcome everybody to this installation of the Expert Talk series for the Trans-Sahara project with Professor Nigussie from Tottori University in Japan. So we're delighted to have him, and Dr. Mengistu Kindu from the Technical University of Munich, who has gladly agreed to moderate for today. So I'm just going to start by introducing Professor Nigussie, who specializes in land degradation and sustainable land management, which focuses on the intersection of science, policy, and development efforts aimed at mitigating its impacts. His work builds on a decade-long collaborative research project in the Upper Blue Nile Basin, which is one of the world's most erosion-prone and politically complex transboundary river systems, conducted with multiple Japanese and Ethiopian institutions. And through his research, he examines the lessons learned and their broader applicability, linking regional insights and to global perspectives. The ultimate goal of his work is to establish a comprehensive framework that bridges gaps between science, policy, and practical information in sustainable land management. And Professor Nigussie has over 25 years of research and academic experience participating and leading in externally funded research projects across Africa, Europe, and Asia. So very much happy to welcome him today. And Dr. Mengistu Kindu, who's agreed to moderate for us, is a research scientist and senior lecturer at the Department of Life Science Systems at the Technical University of Munich in Germany. He holds a PhD in natural science, specialized geoinformatics and applications to resource management from TUM, and a Master of Geoinformation Science from, you have to bear with me for this one, Wageningen University in the Netherlands. Am I pronouncing that right? I'm not sure. He develops methodological frameworks using Earth observation data to address complex geospatial challenges across agriculture, water, soil, forestry, and urban and rural land use and land cover systems. His work spans Africa, Europe, North and South America, and he has been actively involved in several international and EU-funded research projects, including the Trans-Sahara Project Initiative, which we're all here for today. So, yeah, if the pair of you just want to say a quick hello, and then we'll pass to yourself, Professor Nigussie, for the presentation.
Thank you, Leah, for a very nice introduction. Thank you all. Good afternoon, maybe here. Good morning there. So thank you for the opportunity. So I'm going to share my slides. Can you hear me well, by the way?
Yes. Yeah.
Let me check. Okay. My talk will be on, bridging. Bridging science, policy, and practice gaps and sustainable land management. Maybe to give you a bit of the outline, I will try to give you an overview of global land management initiatives through which I've been involved with various groups across the world. And second one is introduction of a framework to enhance the science policy development gaps in SLM. And then finally, I'm going to introduce some of our activities in relation to these science policy development gaps in SLM. This is just an overview of how soil erosion is kind of number one problem when it is compared with other sorts of degradation processes. You could see, based on this, erosion has been identified as number one problem almost in major continents, especially in Africa and particularly in Ethiopia. So we focus on this, but soil erosion takes various forms actually. This is a recent study that addresses various sorts of erosion, water erosion, which is sheet and erosion, wind erosion, and tillage erosion, gully erosion, and crop harvesting. So this is a kind of susceptibility map, just from very low to very high, and which means red spots show very high risk. When we see all these different processes most of these processes occur in more than in one place. We found like more than 2 or more processes are really happening. Then the problem becomes complicated if these multiple processes really occur in a particular region. And we found that nearly 81% of countries are really facing moderate or high risk of erosion from 2 or more processes. So what policy we have at global scale to mitigate land degradation? Obviously, as everybody could be familiar, the issue of achieving a land degradation neutral world by 2030, particular mention is SDG target 15.3. It is clearly stated that combating desertification, restore degraded land in soil, including land affected by desertification, drought and flood, and strive to achieve a land degradation neutral world. How they want to do it is through balancing new degradation and reversing past degradation. So a level balance between gain and loss, that's how it is conceived as land degradation neutral world. And probably the issue is how we link food security, healthy ecosystem, and human well-being. And there are various interventions, either reversing or reducing or avoiding. And the key issue here is also how we can continuously monitor, try to understand where this target is being achieved. Having this general policy framework, CLM has been identified as a key strategy to achieve this land degradation neutrality. It is identified as a win-win practice, which means address ecosystem concerns, productivity, and livelihood and human well-being. Why past SLM efforts were not successful was because probably they were specific to a particular target. Either they address mainly the ecosystem concerns or to a certain extent productivity and livelihood. Unless we address these triple issues, maybe the sustainability of SLM will be under question. So this is a kind of governing issue when we see SLM. So if that's the case, where is the current status of SLM? This is a kind of global review addressing how SLM or erosion risk has been addressed from the viewpoint of practice, which is, we call it SLM dissemination, and how it has been addressed also from the viewpoint of research progress. When we see this, we try to see there is a very huge gap. For example, the correspondence between research and erosion risk is much less, like 3%. And the same with practice and also practice and the erosion risk. Apparently, there is weak linkage among erosion risk, research, and dissemination. Then we identify how we can narrow this gap, at least in the short term, which means we have quite a lot of papers coming every year focusing on SLM. On the other hand, there is massive investment in SLM through various initiatives, but you see there is not much coordination already with the activities being implemented. And one key challenge we identified was a lack of common research evidence platform where researchers, practitioners can share their evidences. And in this regard, we identify WCAT, which is a World Conservation Overview of Conservation Approach and Practices. But the WCAT is mainly accepting experience from the practitioners. They are not accepting from the researchers because there is no that kind of framework available. So we discussed with the WCAT and suggest a framework to narrow this gap. And recently we saw that it is not sufficient only to deal with practice and research. Maybe because another key aspect in SLM is policy dimension. So science, which means research, development, which is practice, and policy, are three key pillars for sustainability, not only in SLM, but also in other dimensions. So especially here, we developed this framework to evaluate how soil erosion risk could be addressed through the interlink between science, policy, and development. So there is, of course, kind of relationship called SCPI at the university level, science policy interface, but there is no such science development interface or policy development interface. Usually, people assume science drives development, but in reality, development also drives. So it is a bi-directional relationship. So same with policy and development. Policy is dictating development, but normally the development has to also dictate the policy. And the same with science and policy. So we see this kind of bi-directional relationship and establish whether there is linkage and to what extent this linkage is strong. And ultimately, this science and science policy development have to come to a common platform, and that we call it Science Policy Development Interface, which is SPDI. So to do this, we relied on existing database at country level. So soil legal instruments from FAO, technologies in practice from WCAT, and research evidences from scientific databases, bibliographic like Web of Science. So finally, we had this map. The first map is linking, these are really science policy interface in relation to erosion risk of country like low, moderate, high. The second one is between science and development interface in relation to erosion. And same is policy development. And finally, the science policy development interface, which is all three together. Apparently, as you could see, low, moderate, we don't have a country that has a very strong SPI, but only to the moderate level, and there are only very few countries. So this is a missing link in most countries. And also there is also a problem in science development, especially China is the one that demonstrates a bit of alignment between the research and development. The rest of the countries are not in that direction. And when we go to the science development interface, again, there are only very few countries that have strong connection, like Australia and Argentina. But apart from that, either they fall in the moderate or the low. And finally, when we do all this together, identified only China and Argentina, which have a relatively better potential in SPDI compared to the erosion risks. So what is apparently clear from this is nearly 77% of the countries are very weak science policy development interface, which is not matching their erosion risk level. Then we have to actually find how we can narrow this. The way research being conducted has to be revisited. So instead of doing more specific discipline-based research, we have to come more interdisciplinary research, and we have to go even beyond interdisciplinary to transdisciplinary research. So when we mean by transdisciplinary research, it involves also not only researchers, but also non-researchers. So we developed a 7-stage framework that involves from shared research framing until ex post evaluation. So the current how we frame our research is coming mainly from the researcher's point of view. But in this framework, we emphasize the involvement of the local knowledge and the local needs, the involvement of the policy people as part of the research process. Not only just telling or visiting them, but they have to really involve in the evolution and finally refine, identify key research issues of common interest. Then that's one particular issue which is really missing. Second one is the current funding scheme is more to basic research, nearly 80%, all over, maybe across the world. There is no particular mention for transdisciplinary research. So the way research funds being now granted are not really addressing key issues of transdisciplinary research, because if you make transdisciplinary, it involves several stakeholders and key thematic areas, and we need more resource and so on. And also the duration of each project. Normally projects run for a maximum of 5 years, but in reality, such kind of environmental research, they are going beyond this limited period. So there should be flexible funding, and that needs to be really considered in future funding scheme, especially if you want to address transdisciplinary research. And the third issue is co-creation of integrated and transferable practices, where we see here is co-designing and testing of new existing practice research, not only researchers, but we do also involve practitioners, farmers in this process. And we do, once we develop through experimentation or any laboratory or field experiment, we have to verify it at pilot sites, how this could be practical for the farmers managed condition, for example. So we do this verification, which we call it piloting. And depending on the outcome of the piloting, we have to bring it back to the situation and select, test, and adopt practices. This involves stakeholders, multiple stakeholders coming into a common platform where they have their own opinion, not only from the scientific perspective, from the policy and other perspective. If that doesn't satisfy, we have to go back and redesign and rerun the experiment. But if it passes this stage, we have to go to the next stage. And this next stage is preparing a working document. And working documents are guidelines or policy briefs or applications, whatever. So this brings us to synthesis of the research outcomes, which can be translated or implemented into practice. And then fifth point is policy and instrument. For example, based on the outcome of this, we may come up with some barriers, policy barriers. And the policy people, they have to consider the outcome of this and try to embed or integrate into their national programs. And for this, there should be a way or an outlet to do that. And the sixth point is ensuring communication, how we communicate our research findings. It is not only through scientific publication, but we have to make use of all these possible avenues, like this kind of platform. And also there are open access knowledge sharing platforms, globally accessible, that should be open and accessible, especially for developing countries which have no resource to subscribe all the databases and so on. And the last one is ex-post evaluation. It is not only evaluation during the course of the project. Probably we have to revisit and go back after maybe 3-5 years, go to the site, whether the project has brought the intended impacts. So go back to the situation and understand what were the key challenges and opportunities. And that will be a basis also for redesigning future projects. So this framework is one paper by itself, but just try to summarize a bit of everything in this frame. So you can access this in this link. Then I would like to share some case studies from Ethiopia because I'm originally from Ethiopia and I've been working there for a long time as a researcher. And even if I am now based in Japan, I really strongly collaborate with researchers in Ethiopia. So Ethiopia is one of the erosion hotspot regions, as you may recall from the previous maps. And on the other hand, also there have been a lot of ongoing SLM activities through various initiatives. Apparently, erosion is still accelerated. We wonder why we have this kind of situation, why there have been a lot of effects in this. May not be conclusive, but one of the key challenges were probably the past efforts were mainly focusing on addressing only the soil erosion, like construction of physical structures to reduce runoff erosion. But those structures may not have a direct impact on improving the land productivity or the livelihood and social empowerment. So in this new initiative, we aim to have more integrated impact on top of soil erosion. And second point was how the farmers were really mobilized to engage in SLM. It is more top-down approach through engaging in community free labor activities. But over time, this has evolved and voluntary participation through various initiatives, economic incentives like revolving loan and so on. I'm going to explain later. And third one is how we engage the diverse stakeholders through various decision platforms. So this is also one issue we try to address in this project. And this project had 5 major components. Erosion was one aspect of it, but erosion reduction has to be integrated with productivity improvement. So production improvement from 3 main land use types was another component. And ultimately, this too has to be linked with improvement in farmers' livelihood. And finally, we develop a kind of next generation SLA framework that synthesizes the lessons from these 3 different components. And finally, the dissemination. We did our research Upper Blue Nile Basin. This is one of the very erosion hotspot regions. It is a very important river basin, not only for Ethiopia, but also for downstream countries like Sudan and Egypt. Very huge erosion going on. Same time, there have been some initiatives also to rehabilitate or to conserve soil. So in each site, representing different agroecologies, this midland, highland, and this lowland, we identified pair watersheds, and in each pair watersheds, one seems relatively in stable condition or well-managed condition, the other not. So, but the idea we start like that, but in reality, we couldn't find that distinction. Anyway, we set up observation sites at the outlets of each, and we set up several plots in each site to understand more the processes and try to understand the mechanism, impact, and finally synthesize this to catchment level or watershed level. Finally, we tested over 42 different technologies, feeding, cropland, grazing, and graded hills. And finally, we synthesized select specific technologies, 13 technologies and 4 approaches. And finally, they were synthesized into guideline. And this guideline was prepared in English and in the local language, Amharic national language. And this was open access, published as a book, as open access. Then once we have this, the next step is how are we going to implement it? So the issue of linking researchers, policy people, practitioners has come. And we engage the research in development concept. It is not research for development. It is rather research in development, which means research can be, science can be transformed by itself over time. So this concept is more engaging the research and development in a bi-directional relationship. And to do this, we have one group, researchers, we have land users, and we have policy people, practitioners. And we created a platform that brings all these different into the same platform. We call it convergence of knowledge. So every member has his own vision, his own idea, and then try to discuss this issue and identify a common target site where we can implement SLM. So upscale SLM dissemination that we have already developed through joint monitoring and evaluation, and finally approach for upscaling. So this was the kind of routine process to do joint activities, and apparently we have been doing this and we have some progresses. Probably this is a kind of summary of the previous project. As I say, identify circum-based technology and approach, guideline and policy develop, over 80 scientific papers, capacity building massive, over 19 PhD students, and capacity building in terms of laboratory facility and so on. And as part of social implementation, we have been targeting these 4 different sites in the Upper Blue Nile Basin, and we collaborate with various institutes to implement those social implementation activities. For example, one of the activities is gully erosion. You see this is the situation of the gully in 2022, and we rehabilitate this through community-based gully management. And we observe the change in hydrology, biomass, income. And through this way, this practice has been upscaled to other similar gullies by the communities themselves. Another one is more how we do integration between management, productivity, livelihood, particular site in Greenland. So ultimate goal is enhance local breed cow milk productivity and income. How we do it? Through various initiatives. One is we have to make sufficient and good quality feed available. And the feed source is very poor as it stands now. So through our project, identify potential feed sources which can produce more biomass and good quality. So we enrich the grazing area, but also we integrate the forage with the livestock, with the grazing area. And also there have been a lot of gullies, and we rehabilitated those gullies. And the gullies have become more productive to produce biomass for the feed. And once we have this conservation-based feed quality and amounts, the next one is to improve the genetic potential of the crossbreed, the local cows, because the local cows, they have low, poor genetic potential, and try to introduce bull, which can enhance their genetic potential. And through this way, the local communities have been benefiting. And the third point is how we ensure water availability. We have been studying groundwater and make how groundwater will be available in a cheap and quick way. So we have been studying on that. Another one is market access. So establish cooperatives, and this market access could help them reach the nearby city in a group. And of course, to do this, also they had access to credit because they organize themselves as credit saving. Of course, capacity building, experience sharing, and so on was part of this. So it is more kind of a holistic approach, integrating the biophysical and social dimensions to finally improve productivity and benefit. And another one is restoration. As you may know, Ethiopian highlands, dominantly Christian. There are a lot of churches across the world, across the country, over 35,000. So these churches are really important biodiversity sites because they have been conserved for hundreds of years. You can see clearly this is Google Earth image. Surrounding area is highly degraded, while this area is kind of island or forest. And if you see there, you will feel different climate, you will feel different ecology. So we have been studying the potential of these churches, how soil from this as inoculum source can be used for restoration of degraded hills. So we studied the role of soil organisms, microbes, and we found that the microbes have, from the church forest, have very good potential, especially in the nitrogen fixation and so on. Through identifying this, we have been trying to study the plant-soil microbe interaction and functional isolation. And through this, we use as a nursery site established. And through these nursery sites, raise thousands of seedlings and help through mobilizing the community to rehabilitate degraded hills, and also school compounds set up environmental clubs in elementary, junior high schools. And through this way, we monitor growth, and also we evaluate the ecosystem services. Because such kind of natural ecosystems, there is no appropriate methodology to evaluate the ecosystem. So we are developing now a new method, how we can evaluate ecosystem service from this kind of ecology. And finally, we are developing the guideline, which is now draft stage. So what's next? So the issue is SLM has been widely promoted worldwide. Even the UNSCD identified as a key pillar. Most of the research or the SLM activity we see are more reducing impact, minimizing impact, which is achieving land degradation neutrality. So achieving a land degradation neutrality is not sustainable because, especially in dryland regions, including Ethiopia, current resource base is already degraded. So if you want to maintain the current status, that is no more sustainable. So how we can really go beyond sustaining the current state of degradation is through restoration. And to restore that environment, we have to be more innovative in a sense, because the current degradation is mainly result of human activity, particularly conventional agriculture. Conventional agriculture has peculiar properties. One is high input of inorganic fertilizer, which is damaging the soil and organisms and so on. And also very expensive these days because the price of fertilizer is unaffordable, especially in developing countries. It has become really impossible. Access is limited, and if you access it, it is so expensive. So we cannot continue with that arrangement. Second one is the conventional agriculture we have is more frequent tillage, extensive tillage. So that damages the soil structure, soil property. And it's also monocropping. It is more of a monocropping system, just maize or wheat, that's it. But in a real situation, we have to maximize the resource we have. For example, the sunlight. We can reduce the erosion we have naturally. If we protect the soil, probably through surface cover, mulching, or cover crops or intercropping, we can also enhance the soil property. So the key pillar under this arrangement is how so practices that can restore the natural soil can build soil health and through which we can improve productivity, reduce cost, and we can also enhance ecosystem functions, reduce erosion, improve biodiversity, and increase resilience to climate. And we do it not only in a specific crop specific, but we have agriculture, we have forestry in the landscape concept. So in the landscape, these are existing practices and they compete for a limited resource. So how we can balance this? Through this, we have to develop an integrated landscape approach. And that integrated landscape approach brings various sectors, various stakeholders together, and help identify how we can sustainably plan and use that landscape. So this is a kind of feature project now we are trying to implement in southern Ethiopia, targeting a lake catchment in southern Ethiopia, Hawassa. Ultimately, goal is more how we can optimize profit and enhance environment. And through this way, we can save labor, we can restore soil, and we can build the soil in a positive sense, not like balancing the current state of degradations. So we believe through this arrangement, maybe we can ensure a sustainable production, a sustainable environment, maybe for decades to come, especially under increasing human activity and climate change. So with this, I conclude my talk. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Nigussie, for compelling and a thought-provoking presentation. You have highlighted not only the scale of land degradation and soil erosion globally, but also a critical gap between science, policy, and practices, and importantly, how next generation sustainable land management can help bridge this gap through evidence, collaborative, and livelihood integration. With that, I would like now to open the floor for questions and discussion. You may raise your hand or use your chat, and please introduce yourself before speaking. Any question?
I think there's a question in the Q&A section.
Mm-hmm.
If you can see it there.
Okay, no.
I'm just going to unmute everybody so you've got a chance to speak.
Okay. I see one question here. Shall I reply? It says,
yes, yeah. Can you see it there?
I see one. What goes into the testing of farmers and the selection process? I think if I have to reframe this, what's the role of the farmers in the selection of the technology? Is that something, or is that how we target farmers? I need clarification. Testing of farmers, what does that mean?
I think whoever sent it, yeah, it looks like they left the chat a while ago. Maybe something came up, but yeah, maybe if you just want to answer, yeah, what goes into the selection process and what do you need from the farmers? Perhaps maybe that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, actually, it depends on what intervention we target farmers. If you want to engage them more empowerment, like income generating and so on, we target those disadvantaged farmers, especially resource poor farmers, women and youth, because these people usually have no land. So with limited land, they can engage in income generating activity in the homestead. For example, they can develop forage. Then through joint initiative, we introduce milk cows. cost-sharing arrangement. And these people have tremendously changed their livelihood in a short time. So in that perspective, we target only those disadvantaged people. But when think of engaging as joint research, it is open. Especially we also encourage knowledgeable farmers, especially who are leading farmers in their surrounding, where we can really interact and they can share experience. And through that way, the discussion will be more productive. And we invite representative farmers selected by the community, and we engage them in this joint platform. So two perspectives anyway. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we have another one, Valentin. Can you, yeah.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Prof. Thank you for the presentation. I have one question regarding the regenerative agriculture. The fact that based on the conventional agriculture, we are using non-conventional inputs, agricultural inputs, practices that contribute to increase the level of degradation of the land. I want to pick the case of sub-Saharan Africa here. We are facing a problem where if we want to rely only on maybe biological fertilizer, biological pesticide to do agriculture, it's like in a food security perspective, we may not be able to feed the population. And what most of the government, most of the private sector working in the agri sector are trying to do is to promote the good use of these chemical inputs, fertilizer, so that we may be able to produce sufficient quantity of food for the population, and we may not harm very hardly the environment. It's like we are trying to make a kind of trade-off between food production and also environment preservation. I would like to know, based on your experience in your area and also in other areas in Asia, Europe, and in Africa, what do you think can be the good strategy, knowing that today's with the climate change that is exacerbating the environmental degradation, even though we are not using pesticides, there are natural factors that contribute to degrade the environment and mainly the soil. But what can we do to have a rational trade-off between the food production to feed the population and also to save our environment?
Good. I think a very pertinent question. Thank you. That's the issue actually, and as I try to describe here, we need to balance production at the same time environmental functions. How we do it, many people ask, okay, regenerative agriculture may not give good yield, for example. Of course, we target profit. One key issue we are trying to do in this project is how we can do profit from regenerative agriculture. So it is an integration of different practices, actually. First is we have to do with the tillage practice we are currently doing. How we do currently just frequency of tillage that is damaging the soil structure, moisture, microbes, and so on. And second one is we are just growing crops, and not all the year the surface is covered. It is rather cover crops can be brought into this. And through this way, also we can make use of not only just monocropping, through intercropping. And it is also through this way that we can integrate with livestock and also other sectors. So through multiple intervention, for example, organic amendments and tillage and other practices like cover crops can improve the soil health, for example. So improving the soil health is a key issue. And through improving the soil health, we can enhance the soil micro-plant interaction. That is the bottom line, I think. Because under this conventional agriculture, this symbiotic relationship has been disrupted. So that's why we have issue of various forms of degradation. So we can engage when we do cropping. It is not only the target crop we are doing. We have to integrate with more important cash crops like spices, for example, integration with the spices, which we can harvest them in a short time and we can make use of for just income generation. So there are promising initiatives on this. I cannot say everything now, but it is something we have very good, clear plan in mind, and that's something we are about to implement soon. So I just want to share because at the end of the day, how far we go, especially I'm from Ethiopia, as I mentioned, farmers were revolting against the government some years back. Why? They couldn't get fertilizer because of the Ukraine war. Normally, the fertilizer used to come from Ukraine or Russia or something. Then that was stopped. And then government couldn't support them because maybe they don't have enough money to buy from other areas and expensive. Then there was a revolt. And you see now current crisis going there, it is partly linked to that. So how we can really sustain rather more nature dependent. We need to be more dependent on the natural restoration. And instead of like short-term goals, achieving short-term benefits, probably it is a phase. So it is more permanent, but I am very hopeful as long as we do it more in an integrated manner through this way, improving soil tillage, cover crops, selection of crops, linking with the sectors like livestock and other sorts of degradation, then probably that gives a win-win solution because ultimately we can enhance the environment at the same time also improve productivity. So yeah, I'm optimistic we can achieve both production and environment.
Thank you very much for this excellent response. Do you have any other question?
Thank you. I'm sorry, I haven't introduced myself. I'm Valentin Ouedraogo. I'm working for WASCAL, West African Science Service Center on Climate Change and Adapted Land Use. And we are taking care of the work package 3 in the TRANS-SAHARA project. And I know I have worked at the Ministry of Agri, and I'm currently a climate scientist taking care of gas and remote sensing at WASCAL. Thank you for this response. As a follow-up question is regarding the stakeholders. You know, to target the stakeholders at the beginning of the project. One issue most of the project or most of the development partners face is the level of understanding, maybe the level of knowledge, or maybe of the technology, or even the language of the farmers. Which farmers or from which area are we going to choose, or are we going to consider all of them? But how are we going to make sure that they understand what we are going to implement in their area? This is really most of the cases what we are facing here. How to choose the farmers, the stakeholders.
Exactly. I think this is another practical issue. Yeah, thank you for raising this issue. Maybe as I try to respond in the first question, identification or selection of the farmer, I said two categories. Like if you want to empower them, we're targeting mainly poor people. But when it comes to more collaborative type of joint idea or initiative, that is something more kind of targeted type of stakeholder identification. So usually in Ethiopian context, there is lead farmer, they call them model farmer, something like that, which seems they are better off in terms of understanding of the situation. They can explain articulately the problem. In a way, also when we try to communicate them, they can understand our view. We are not going to talk to them maybe science or mechanistic relationship, but they know, by the way, based on maybe my limited experience during this project, I realized the farmers really have a lot of deep knowledge about understanding the situation. But sometimes when something new comes, when we try to introduce something, like for example, I tell one experience, we have tested various forage species to show environmental adaptability, the biomass, the yield, and so on, the quality. Then we introduced that to the farmers, and no one was willing to take it. Then we invited them to come and visit our site and they show the relative performance, but that was not enough for them. What we did was, okay, identify key farmers, as I say, key target farmers, which can be better off, like in terms of understanding. And we engaged them and they did implement it by themselves. In a way, we communicate. Then that was effective. All of a sudden, the surrounding farmers changed their attitude. And this forage species now has expanded all over that area. And farmers are shifting from cropping to livestock, dairy cows. This is an amazing experience for me. So, which means the way we approach farmers and the way we do business with them is something, an iterative process, depending on the local situation. It's not like something fixed, do this, then if you do this, you get this. It depends on the local circumstances, and we have to adapt that to the local circumstance. This is one. And another way was introduce tree called acacia tree, which was actually imported from Australia, a fast-growing tree. And this fast-growing tree was very much adapted for acidic areas. And acidic area where we're working in the highland area, there is a very huge land degradation. So farmers were really forced to migrate somewhere. But after the introduction of this tree, it is very fast growing and it is also a nitrogen fixer. And it could restore the soil, improve the pH, improve the nitrogen, and that becomes productive after 3 or 4 years. And probably in the photo I showed you, the forest cover in that area has expanded. And it is not only forestry in that area. After 5 years of forestry, they convert that to cropland. And we think that the soil is depleted, they turn it back to the forest. So this tree crop rotation is something we found it very interesting because when the forest is in the field, they make use of their time to go somewhere do other off-field activity, on-farm activities. So that way they improve their income. But when it comes to harvesting, they engage and they do. So it depends on the way we organize them. But I understand also the limitation of engaging them at the planning stage, especially if they are too illiterate or not educated, not experienced. But in that regard, I believe we need to target relatively knowledgeable model farmers. That's what I can say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's from the farmers. And maybe I have also one question related to this. Like, how can these international donor and development agencies better align funding mechanisms with evidence-based disease styling, for example?
Okay, very good. It depends also how we engage them. Once we do this, when we implement this project, we engage officially Ministry of Agriculture. Ministry of Agriculture is the main responsible agency to implement land management in Ethiopia. And apparently the Ministry of Agriculture is heavily engaged with multiple donors, including World Bank, GIZ, and so on. For example, GIZ, we closely collaborate with them. We have several exchanges, organize events together, and also with World Bank. So frequently we update each other, and we have also a common kind of platform where we exchange idea and so on. That is more at the national level and also local level. But beyond that, we are also engaging in the UN events like UNSCD COP 16 last year. No, the year before, I think. It was held in Saudi Arabia, and we organize side events there. And when we organize side events, we engage Ethiopian government, JICA. We organize also ICARDA. This is an international organization. And WOCAT. WOCAT is more responsible for compiling different practices across the world. And this is based in Switzerland. So that helped us to reach out international community and also the domestic. Anyway, yeah, it could be in various forms, but this time also digital platforms are becoming available. So it depends on the capacity and the resource you have.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Any other question? Maybe I can have one more. So what skill do you think the next generation of land management scientists must have to effectively bridge science, policy, and practices?
What effect?
What skill? Yeah, kind of skill that you expect for this next generation of land management scientists, so that to bridge effectively this science, policy, and practices.
I think maybe beyond the skill, I think enabling environment is important. So does there exist an enabling environment for a practitioner to collaborate with a researcher, for example? An enabling environment for a policy people to collaborate with the researchers, and so forth. Normally, when you talk to the Ministry of Agriculture, when we talk about research, they feel like it is not part of their team. They feel like, no, we are not part of it. And same policy people. So Ministry of Agriculture, Ethiopian Ministry of Agriculture, even if they base EAIR, they are located adjacent building, but horizontal communication is not there, ideally. So structurally they help, but what the policy people want to hear just gives them something which can produce something in short time, cheaply, and so on. Then, without discussing and engaging with them. It is it is like short fix, maybe long term. It is a bit balancing, so that kind of first common understanding between these various stakeholders should be there, and there should be established system to bring this vertical, for example, favorable environment to implement transdisciplinary research. Then comes the limitation of the skill, probably. We have to address that gap. It can be addressed through various capacity building or whatever forms. So I think that's, for me, that's kind of secondary, I would say.
Thank you very much. Any more questions?
No, it doesn't look like it. I checked in the chat and we don't have anything new, but we're running overtime anyway. So
yeah, so
we got
now I can close. So as we come to close of this online session, today's discussion had clearly shown that sustainable land management is not only a technical challenge, but requires stronger connection between science, policy, and practices. Through both global analysis and concrete example from Ethiopia, Professor Nigussie demonstrated how next generation sustainable land management approach grounded in evidence, stakeholder engagement, and livelihood integration can effectively address land degradation and soil erosion. These lessons are especially important as we look beyond land degradation neutrality towards more resilient and inclusive land system. On behalf of our organizers, I would like to sincerely thank Professor Nigussie for his insightful presentation and all participants for joining us online and contributing through your questions and engagement. We hope today's exchange will inspire continued collaboration beyond this virtual space. Thank you very much, and we look forward to connecting again in our future session.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just to remind everyone before we knock off that the next installment is on the 10th of February. We're going to have Ms. Nigussie Haregeweyn, who is the CEO of Grace Impact, a company that promotes sustainable and clean water management. So looking forward to that, and the promotion will start. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Professor Mengistu.